It's one of the passages in this chapter that really stood out to me when you're talking about the anxiety. It says, the ingeniousness of the ego to preserve itself is enormous, but it stems from the very power of the mind the ego denies. This means that the ego attacks what is preserving it, which must result in extreme anxiety. So it may be as close as we can come to that experience of attacking God, is that anxiety, that this ego, and I love this whole chapter talks about you and the ego, and differentiates. There's you and there's ego, this creation. Right. And that this ego has to continually deny its source, our mind. And that is the source of most profound anxiety. And that is the belief that we've separated.
The course is always... Am I on here? I don't feel like that. No, let me see. It's on. Okay, there he is. Okay. The course is always talking about the ego as though it was something else. I mean, something kind of almost external. At the same time, it's like this thing which is almost external. It seems to be this thing which possesses us, or it's kind of taken us over. So there is a you that you really are, which has nothing to do with this delusional system, right, which seems to have taken hold of your mind. So what we're really learning in this process is how to be free of this illusion that we think is real, which is this decision that got made somewhere that we bought into, that we could be separated from God, which is absolutely impossible. And that's why the whole world is an illusion. And so we're just really trying to regain the mind. And it is talking about you. The you is one of the most frequently used words in the whole course. And the course is talking to you, which is your right mind, your decision-making mind. That's why I keep saying you have to realize you have a mind. And then when you realize you have a mind that can make the right
where decisions are made. Yeah.
Where decisions are made, right. So, yeah. But it looks like we've given the mind over to this other, because the whole world has bought into this. And that's why of course there are very few really who have really seen this. I really kind of got it. I listened to Ken once talking about the fact that, it's amazing. There are a few in the course of history who got the insanity of the world, but most of us, which is really kind of the question you were asking at the break, David, too, about this, have bought into this delusional system of thinking. In this next column, I'll just mention, I won't go through this. Again, we're talking about complaining and fault finding and projection and seeing stuff out there as problems in the world. I had this experience a week or two ago, which I describe here. I had breakfast with a minister friend who lives up near where I live. And so the whole breakfast conversation was about the problems of the church, and about the people of the church who are not accepting responsibility for the fact the church is in debt, and if they need to get something going. And I left there and I went to the post office, and the post guy at the window, I'm there almost every day, so we're friends, and he starts telling me about how they're going to raise their postage, and they haven't told him anything, and he doesn't know anything, and he doesn't know what it's going to be, and then why in other words, it was about all the problems that are going on in the post office.
End of the world.
Yeah, and so then I left there, and I went to the grocery store, and I know the clerk at the grocery store, and she was telling me about her daughter and all the problems with her daughter. Of course, I started this by saying, "How are you?" What's going on, And then you find out what's going on. And then I went to, there was one more in there. I think it was the grocery store. Anyhow, come fourth time, this was the grocery store, so I'm missing some element in there. And the clerk at the grocery store said, and it's an interesting response, right? Can't find anything to complain about. Well, now think about that. Notice when you say to somebody, "How are you?" what the response is. It may be wonderful or fine or great, but very often it'll be, "Can't find anything to complain about." So it's almost as though I'd like to be able to find something to complain about. We can talk. I'm looking for something to complain about, but at the moment there's just nothing available. Right? Jerry?
During a break.
Mike for Larry. Where's the mic? Yeah, you're losing your job here. Yeah, you're gonna dock your pay.
During a break, I was talking to two women, and I asked them, what are these laws of God that John keeps mentioning? So one of the women explained it to me very nicely. The other woman said, "Why don't you ask him?" So I'm asking you. Of course, everybody can benefit from that answer.
Yeah, I did talk about that a little bit earlier. The laws of God are like, as you give, so do you receive. In order to have peace, teach peace to have it. Those are the laws of God. They're laws which are add to or benefit whatever. As we extend love, we experience more love. That sort of thing. Whereas the laws of the ego, as I said, are regressive and take away rather than add to. So they're destructive, whereas the laws of God are creative.
Well, can you simplify it? Well, when I was talking to one of the women, I said, well, when I'm selfless, I feel good. Mm-hmm. When I feel guilty or inadequate, then I feel bad. So
right.
It's obviously listening to God and listening to the ego.
Right.
So is it that simple of saying?
Yes, it's that simple.
It's that simple.
It's that simple. We can't. Actually, it's very easy.
Benefit.
Actually, the Course says on several different occasions that this is a very simple course. This whole process is very simple. It's amazing that we've allowed our minds to get so caught up in this negative, regressive kind of thinking. Because it's really, to change the whole thing is really a pretty simple process. All you got to do is just realize you can change it. There's another way of seeing things. That's what this whole course is about. And I can see through the eyes of love rather than seeing through these the fearful eyes of the ego. That it says on the very first page of the course, right? It's either fear or love, but all there really is love. And yet we've got caught up in the fear, and the fear is the illusion, right? There's really nothing to be afraid of. Yes, Ruth, here, I'll give Lily Cuts. Okay, good. Brad's on the ball.
Why are there so many words then?
Well, we could have no words at all, because, but actually the Course says we need words, because it's the basic tool that we have developed to work with. So seeing how it's the basic tool that we've learned how to work with, then we work with what we have to work with. and the body is another tool which we have to work with that to learn with that as well. And that's why, again, the Course says why there's so many words is because you are so dense. So I keep repeating it over and over and over again to you till you actually, and that's one thing that happens by this, that for all of us, as you read the Course, this is why I keep saying this is incredibly deep. And that's why it gets so exciting, and why when these insights come, you will have read this material, and you read this material, and you read this material, and then by God you get it, and you have this incredible, and
then words go away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because very good, because it has to become an experience. It has to integrate. If I don't integrate this, so it's like exercise, it's like I keep exercising in order to get my body into shape while I keep exercising my mind, if this is a course in mind training, so I get up to the point where my mind finally really is in shape.
So the other noticing I had recently is there are no stories in the text.
No, they're not.
I really miss that.
Yes, well, you're right. There are none, but stories are really good. Actually, Jesus of the Gospels is essentially a storyteller, and that's why we have all these 33 different parables in the Gospel, because that's a good way of teaching. But keep in mind, if there's actually a line in the Bible where the disciples say to Jesus, why do you tell so many stories? And he says, because in hearing they do not hear, which is what we're talking about, right? And in seeing they do not see, right? So, but the story, the myth, is always a good way for us to understand. Actually, when I wrote Living A Course in Miracles, the publisher put in the contract that I had to include a bunch of stories. And, well, it's a really good technique. It's a wonderful technique for learning. Now, this is not a lot of stories. This is more direct. And keep in mind, it's really important that the Course was written when it was written, because it's written in the latter quarter of the 20th century by a psychologist who understands psychology really, really, really well. And a Freudian psychologist nonetheless, again, for those of you who don't know, essentially Freud had it right about how the ego works. I mean, he understood the mechanisms of the mind and how we like the defense mechanisms and how we utilize those. The basic problem was that he thought it was real. He thought that the ego was a real thing. He didn't have the spiritual perspective which enabled him to see that you could get beyond it or past it. He thought you just damned with it. You're stuck with it and there was no solution. So now we're in an age where we can begin to hear it in a better way. I think sometimes if this had shown up, say, during the 19th century, it would just baffle the hell out of people. There would be any way to understand it. But now here we are in the 21st century, a little bit more sophisticated and more capable of understanding psychological language, for one thing.
I think the one story that is in the Course is the one of the prodigal son.
The story of the
That's
prodigal
the
son.
only one, yeah.
It's not. But it's kind of basing on the fact that you already know the story.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I think, probably the best of all the stories, because that's the situation we're all in, is that we've left home. We've run away from God. The good news is that you can have an awakening, turn around, come home, and you're just going to be welcomed with open arms, because as far as God's concerned, you never left. And you've done nothing wrong. So you want to give the mic over here? And then back to Billy after.
Okay. So we've never left, and we are God, which is abstract. And so aren't stories unreal?
In that sense.
In that sense, right?
Yes. We need the story but the story is as a stepping stone.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
to help us along the way. It's a learning device or a tool.
Right.
Right.
But the fact that the Course doesn't have stories have something to do with stories not being real. In other words, I know that
Yeah, I
there's
understand.
symbols
So
just like words are symbols.
Very good
but-
point, yes. All stories are stories.
Right.
All stories are mythologies.
Right.
You are not your story.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Or we sometimes, you are not your resume.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So we can use the story
Right.
as a mechanism for getting beyond the story.
Okay.
Actually, we're really looking at this whole thing as getting completely beyond this thing that we call an ego.
Right.
Egos are always involved in stories.
That's what I
Right.
mean.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Charles.
John, I can think of two mini parables in the Course: the ray of sunlight and the wave in the ocean.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
So
There are these.
he hasn't stopped being a storyteller, really.
Right, there are these little kind of vignettes, little metaphors that are used. Yeah, there's not a long story.
Or a story with people.
Yeah, or with people. Right. Good. Anything else? Let's look at this. See, as you can see, we never get through all this. That's why one of the reasons I type it out. See what I left that I'd like to highlight. Maybe look on 7 for a moment, left-hand column. The part from the Course there. Therefore, they make up images perceive them as unworthy, and attack them for their unworthiness. That is all the world of the ego is, nothing. It has no meaning. It does not exist. This is so crucial. Do not try to understand it, because if you do, you are believing that it can be understood and is therefore capable of being appreciated and loved. See, that's kind of where Freud got into kind of understanding it, right? That would justify its existence, which cannot be justified. You cannot make the meaningless meaningful. This can only be an insane attempt. So this is crucial understanding that the ego simply does not exist. It has no meaning. It's a total illusion, and we get caught up in this total illusion. Therefore, we only got to come back to reality. So, Terrence, you want to? No, you thought you did read.
Yes.
Okay, you want to give Terrence your?
Theron.
What is it? Darren's?
Theron, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
It's okay. Many people do.
There's no person in there to be offended.
Yeah.
No
I
ego.
don't identify with that name as my reality, therefore I cannot be offended. Yeah. So actually, this passage is something. Often when I read these chapters, I get a feeling that I have to struggle to turn into words, and this was something that really helped me turn this into words. Is that this whole chapter is about undoing my circular miscreation.
Good way to press it.
It's like when you're arguing with your friends or debating or something, and you have like this specious circular logic argument. That's kind of what you do with your ego, right? Where you set up this scenario that compounds on itself over and over again, and you can't get out of this circular miscreation without stepping away from it and really looking at it for what it is.
I love that phrase, circular miscreation. That's really a great way to express exactly what happens. But we get caught up in this repeated circular miscreation. Great, thank you. And over here to Eric, right in the back.
That just reminds me of personally offended and insulted,
Right.
Which is what happens when we perceive, even before the attack is complete, the apparent attack is completed, we are offended and insulted. And that's why we put God as ourselves, that we're afraid that God is personally offended and insulted by us thinking that we could separate.
Right. So you cannot be offended. I have a chapter in the Living A Course in Miracles about words. And I won't get into the words today, but at another point, I probably have done. Have I done the words here?
Not here.
Not here. Well, we'll do the words maybe another time, because it's really fun to look at our language and how we off-ended. It knocked me off the end, or upset. When you say a word like upset, you get upset about something, and you really have to look at what is it that's upset. And only an ego would get upset, or only an ego could be offended. So if you're not an ego, you can't be offended, you can't be upset, because there's nothing there to be that. Could Jesus be insulted? Would Jesus get upset because the disciples weren't getting it? They just don't understand. Stupid disciples. But that's the way the world is. The world is that people are stupid. Anything that involves name calling is very, very projective, right? That like the problem is out there somehow, another. I just had this experience I was in. It just shows you a little bit of a sample of the ego's insanity. I was in Florida, and the highway suddenly came to a stop because there was construction going on down the road. And so you know what it is when you get to a big construction. Well, you got to kind of just wait for however long it takes to get past this construction area. And there's a pickup behind me, a big one, black with a grill made out of silver grill, right? And all I can see in my rearview mirror is the grill. He's that close. I can't see who's up in there. And one of those big wheels, And as we're slowly going down there, I'm allowing space to occur between me and the car ahead. Lots of space, like 2 or 3 car lengths between me and the car ahead. Because I'm really kind of going we're 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, we're going down the road. And this guy starts doing with the motor. And then honking. And what? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? There's 2, 3 car lengths right here. And all of a sudden, he goes onto the shoulder. Boom! Oh, very good. It's just the insanity of the ego. The ego is this, it can, nothing for something. Look how many times that happens and how many different ways that happens.
Great sound effects.
That is how it sounded, huh? All right, Barry, and then we're going to do something else here. Yes, where's the mic? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry? When I took the class with you, The Way of the Mystic, you gave us a page on Eckhart Tolle as a modern-day mystic. And there's something in there that I'm not quite sure. He was suffering from suicidal depression for quite some time, and the way he got out of it was he realized there's no self. Now, that can be confusing depending on what you believe in, but can I assume that he realized that he's not his ego?
Right. That's what happened.
And he had lived and now he's the world's #1 spiritual teacher.
See, isn't that remarkable? All you got to do is just realize that you're not the self. An ego, right? I mean,
intelligent guy like that. He never he taught in the university level for many years, and yet he was still suffering from suicidal depression until one day. I'm not an ego.
Right. It's whatever's going to cause us to wake up. And I in the past, I've given an illustration about how a lot of folks who we regard as being kind of enlightened beings have been people who've had crash and burn experiences and really got down to the point of realizing through that experience that there is no such thing as me, as a separate being. But that's what happens. What happens when that happens is that if that goes away, then there's still consciousness, there's still awareness. So then, what is it that has the awareness? And that's the exciting thing. What is it that's there when the ego goes away? There's still something there, and that's what gets really exciting, because now we have the experience the Course talked about in the last chapter we looked at. I think it was in 6, where it talks about having and being. And just being is an incredible experience. But what you're being is you're actually being free. Being free of the world and being free of the illusion that you are something special. The Course is going to talk about, we'll see in later chapters, we haven't got to specialness yet. The whole idea that I could be something special in the world. And there's several different ways we could think of ourselves as being special. You're special because you're hot, you're special because you're not hot, etc. We'll talk about that at another point. Okay, first of all, did anybody, those little cards that I passed around, did anybody, did that say anything to anyone? These are really meant for you. These are like the I Ching for you. I'm just curious as to anybody found that. Yeah, Lollycats, you want to share what you got?
I place the peace of God in your...
Wait, there's a mic right there.
I place the peace of God in your heart and in your hands to hold and share. The heart is pure to hold it, and the hands are strong to give it. We cannot lose.
It's beautiful. Isn't it remarkable how there's just so many passages in the Course that are just... If you've got this book called The Gifts of God, which is some of the best selections from the Course.
Well, I think mine speaks to what we were talking about today, about what we want to look at and focus on each day, each hour, every instant. I am choosing what I want to look upon, the sounds I want to hear, the witnesses to what I want to be the truth for me.
Very good. And sometimes it's poetic too, right? David, you want to? Here, let me take this.
Yeah, this is almost Buddhistic. That's a word.
Yeah, sometimes the Course is Buddhistic.
You must have noticed an outstanding characteristic of every end that the ego has accepted as its own. When you have achieved it, it has not satisfied you. This is why the ego is forced to shift endlessly or ceaselessly from one goal to another so that you will continue to hope it can yet offer you something.
Right. So we go from one career to another career, from one marriage to another marriage, or whatever it is.
So I feel like this is an answer to one of my questions I asked today. The healing of God's Son is all the world is for. That is the only purpose the Holy Spirit sees in it, and thus the only one it has.
Right. Very, very good. Oh.
My card also really evaluates everything that we've been talking about attack. The Holy Spirit will help you reinterpret everything that you perceive as fearful and teach you that only what is loving is true.
Yeah, that sort of summarizes our day, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I have a good one. There's no problem in any situation that faith will not solve. It is not possible that all your problems have been. Is it not possible that all your problems have been solved, but you have removed yourself from this solution?
All right. So the thing is simply to realize that your problems have been solved. Right? Okay? All right.
This is one that seems like a synopsis for me of the day. The Holy Spirit sees the world as a teaching device for bringing you home.
Very good. A couple more, and then we're going to... Billy, you want to take this?
Mine says, you will find heaven, everything you seek, but this will fall away. I don't understand when they say this will fall away. In other words, you will find heaven, everything you seek, but this will fall away.
I suppose that this, in that case, is this world, right? Yeah.
I've been in a kind of tug of war about things happening and being pulled between complaining and being upset about what's going on, and then looking at the Course saying I can look at it and see things another way. So when I saw this, what could you not accept if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by the one whose only purpose is your good? It just made me sort of like surrender and just say, okay, it's just not that bad. No judgments about it.
Okay, I think we'll stop on this. That's really good in terms of understanding literally everything. You want to hold this one? Everything that comes our way. It doesn't make any difference what it is, including those things that we just can't even understand. I mean, why this accident? Why this disease? Right? And it's not as though, and all of that has its lesson in it, whether I can see it or not. But then you do see it eventually, right? That's why I think it's sort of interesting. My friend who had the brain operation had the mystical experience, and Cora was telling me she had an operation recently, and she had an experience with that as well. That here are these really kind of seemingly dramatic, tragic even events that somehow or another the eyes get opened during these times. Okay, I want to take the next 10 minutes or so to share a meditation with you. It's probably about 7 minutes or so. And this is a lesson from the Course. It's lesson 95, modified to make it a little bit shorter. And so why don't you relax, and why don't you close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths and just be very present, because there's no place else to be. I am one self united with my Creator. This idea accurately describes you as God created you. You are one within yourself and one with Him who is the unity of all creation. You are one self united with your Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, limitless in power and peace. This is the truth. Nothing else is true. Today we affirm the truth and we try to reach the place in you in which there's no doubt that only this is true. Offer to your mind, with all the certainty that you can give, I am one self united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, limitless in power and in peace. Tell yourself again slowly and thoughtfully, I am one self united with my Creator. Allow the meaning of these words to sink into your mind, replacing false ideas. I am one self united with my Creator. Attempt to feel the meaning that these words convey. You are one self, united and secure in light and joy and peace. You are God's child, one self with one Creator and one goal. To bring awareness of this oneness to all minds, that true creation may extend the allness and the unity of God. You are one self, complete and healed and whole, with power to lift the veil of darkness from the world, and let the light in you come through to teach the world the truth about yourself. You are one self, in perfect harmony with all that there is and all that there will be. You are one self, a holy child of God, united with your brothers and your sisters in that self, united with your Father in His will. Feel this self in you. Let it shine away all your illusions and your doubts. This is your self, a child of God Himself, sinless as its Creator, with His strength within you and His power and love forever yours. You are one self, and it's given you to feel the self within you and to cast all your illusions out of the one mind that is the self, the holy truth in you. Your little part is needed in bringing happiness to all the world. Heaven looks to you in confidence that you will try today. Repeat today's idea frequently as possible. Understand each time you do, someone hears the voice of hope, the stirring of the truth within the mind, the gentle rustling of the wings of peace. Your own acknowledgement, you are one self united with your Father, is a call to all the world to be at one with you. To everyone you meet today, give the promise of today's idea and tell them silently, you are one self with me, united with our Creator in this self. I honor you because of what I am and what He is, who loves us both as one. I am one self, united with my Creator. So be it. When you're ready, take a couple more deep breaths and open your eyes. Thank you for being here today.